Welcome, folks, to the September 25th, 2024 Aries Working Group call. This is a Hyperledger call, and so the antitrust policy and the decentral and the code of conduct are in effect. I guess this is both have changed to the LFDT, and that's okay. We also have news, of course, for those who have not been following along about the future of both the Aries code bases and the location of this call. But for now, this call stands until one is organized on the new side of things. So. I'm Sam, and I will be your tour guide today. Thank you for Stephen for sharing his screen for this. Is there anyone new today that would like to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves to the community?
Well, I haven't been here for a while, so I'm Dave McKay. I'm with Veridid Corp. We're a custom development shop for verifiable credentials. We do non-creds, W3C, open badges, and open attestation. And later on, I'll be demonstrating some of the work that we've been doing around what we consider like an action menu 2.0. And I've got two of my other guys here, Naz and Umut. Naz, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Nas. I am working with for now it's like a couple of years already. We've been working with Akamai controllers and other DigiCred mobile wallet app and things like that. And nice to be here, and I'm very excited to show what we have in demo. Thank you, guys.
Hi guys, Umut here. I'm a student of Dave, and I'm working with him as a full stack developer. Likewise, I'm excited to be here and show what we did. Thank you.
And I'll add that I'm super excited about what we're going to see.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. Welcome, everyone, and glad that you're here today. In our announcements, we have Aries BBS Go with the link there as well, and we've had that for several weeks. Also, the TDW call is a more recent announcement, and tomorrow for the second one, we have the meeting agenda and Zoom link present there. That's moving pretty fast, I thought, Stephen, given the first call that happened. There was lots of attention and stuff there, so that's definitely something to watch if you're interested in TDW. That has a new home at the diff.
Yeah, please
which
join us.
is which is cool. Other announcements that should be on our list.
I can put it under the release and status work updates, but I'll give a quick summary of where we are with Open Wallet Foundation. Those who attended the meeting at Open Wallet last week saw that all 4 projects that we proposed were accepted, Akamai being the big one. We've come up with a strategy for moving Akamai that should minimize disruption, and so we've documented that in an issue. But the way we're doing it is we'll do one more release in Hyperledger. We are doing some deprecation of features, and so that will be the first release at Open Wallet. We're removing connections and issue credential present proof v1, and moving it from inside the main code base to plugins so that there is a path that you can continue to use it, but it's the path to deprecating and removing it from the code base. So we don't have that technical debt. That's kind of cool. We've got a good strategy there, and we've got plugins already created for that. We will also, because we have long-term support, we will actually make a fork of the OWF project back in Hyperledger, so we can continue to produce the old style artifacts of Akamai. So the PyPy library and the container registry, GHCR container images will still be published when necessary. So those will continue, and then there will be a new PyPy library called ACAPI Agent, and a obviously open wallet container repo, container registry. I mean, artifacts produced. The the details are all in there, but it looks like a pretty good plan. So we're starting on that. We'll have that release. We'll do one release almost immediately, 101 of ACAPI. That should come out in the next couple of days, and then we'll go on to um, uh, completing the transition and doing all the edits and necessary, the GitHub actions and so on. So we're ready to transfer it over. Yeah, interesting process. Also highlight ASCAR. We'll do a similar type thing with ASCAR with a port back if necessary, but keep the redirect working. ASCAR has got, we're having a meeting tomorrow, and it's just an informal meeting of developers, but Dave McKay, who's also on this call and going to be presenting, has been working on a version of ASCAR that uses native database encryption versus encrypted by ASCAR. And so we're going to have a discussion about potentially moving that into the core of ASCAR. The cool thing about that is it gives you database cursors from directly within ACAPI, so we can make calls for paging, sorting, and filtering, which would be pretty powerful to be able to do. Yet still have the secure encrypted storage. So that's the discussion, and you'll hear more about that as we go, as well as the transition of ASCAR over. I think the other OWF thing is we're still working on a final name for the test. Open Wallet Labs or OWL is a possibility. There's other ones that we might do. Shell, you really need to take the OWL by the ears and finalize on that. I'm hoping. I'd love to have somebody else make that decision so I don't have to or push things along. So anyway, that's all. Everything is basically moving along as planned. And then next week we do have a discussion about the special interest group we want to create there, which is where this meeting would transition to. So that's all the updates on the open wallet stuff, including ACAPI and things.
Thank you, Stephen. Biologically speaking, I'm not sure taking an owl by the ears is a great idea.
It's a
So
really bad idea, which is why
maybe don't try this at home.
Yeah.
With all of your owl friends, but yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you for the update. Are there any other announcements or updates? Let's smash those together. Announcements or work updates to come before the group today.
Also been lots of cool work in ACAPI plugins on OpenID for VCs and SDJOTs handling.
Cool. Okay. Do we want to look at unrevoke first, just to make sure that we don't miss it? Here's the agenda. We've got a PR for unrevoke to take a look at, and then we have the presentation by Dave and his co-workers. And so those are the two items on the menu today. Any other items that ought to be on the agenda before we?
I think we're ready to go with this one. The ask was to remove the V1 from this, and it's been done. So now we're down to this, and I think we agreed on the approach.
Yep.
So I think we're ready to go with this. Iago, any comments?
No, it's just the modifications we talked earlier in the earlier meetings. There's no new things there.
Excellent.
Is anyone opposed to merging this PR? All right. I
Excellent.
believe that passes. We'll go ahead and make a note and merge and consider that item done. And with that, our second and exciting agenda item today is to pass it over to Dave and team for their presentation on future protocol improvements.
Great, thanks, Sam. I will share my screen. Let's see. Perfect. Okay, so what I want to talk about today are credential workflows. And I've given the complicated name here of data-driven state machine workflows for DIDCOM messaging. And this is kind of an extension of Action Menu. So I'm Dave McKay, I'm with Veridid Corp. I've got some basic contact information here. So why is this a problem? Why do I need to create this solution? So I've had to record lots of sessions, and I've watched recordings of people going through sort of the process of issuing and verifying credentials. And what I found is that it's really disjointed and there's no context in what's going on. So if you don't know the script of what it is that you're doing, and someone watches the video, they're left very confused as to what they just saw. So who did you connect with and why did you connect with them? So what can you do with that connection? So why are you receiving these notifications popping up in your wallet, and what do you do with them? And so someone, you make this connection. Well, what credentials can you get? And then if someone's asking you for a proof, well, why do they want that? And what are they going to do with it? So it leaves a lot of questions. So the basic problem is, in the real world, workflows are way more complicated than just issue and verify. So there's quite often, there's a lot of steps that are involved before something is issued. And that may require verification. Like you can't get a driver's license unless you show, let's say, a birth certificate or a passport, show that you've passed a test, taken a driving test. There may be different choices. Maybe you want a commercial driver's license. Maybe you want a graduated driver's license. There may be forms you have to fill out. So there's all sorts of things that could happen and information that needs to be provided to someone. And what we've been doing up to now is we've been using the sort of website phone combination. So there's demos. The BC Gov has a great demo. A lot of other people have sort of jumped onto the same thing, where you go to the website, you download your app on your phone, and you start using that to navigate through. Well, that's fine, but the problem is most people are mobile only or mobile first. And this kind of website mobile combination is really foreign to people. So I have to use my phone to navigate a website. The other thing too is the development. You then need website developers as well as your credential development, and sort of integrating the two of these. And it's kind of an awkward way of doing things. So I've been doing a lot of work with a US company called DigiCred, and DigiCred's trying to sell this into the educational marketplace. And if you go in and you show what we have now to schools, they look at you funny and they don't understand what it is you're trying to do, and it seems wrong, and no one wants to buy it. So here's the solution that I proposed for this. So what I want to do is I want to have workflows that appear inside the wallet, but you can't hard code these in the mobile application because there's only so much you can put in the mobile application. And if the mobile application has to hold every possible workflow for every possible business, it just doesn't work that way. So the answer to this is to have your workflows as state machines. That makes a lot of sense to me. To have them data driven, so they're not programmed up, but because these are really simple things to do, you represent them as data. And the choice we made was to represent these in JSON data and put it in a database. And what we do is we parse it on the issuer verifier server. We send the display information over to the mobile wallet where we render that. And then if someone clicks on a control, we send that back to the server And both of these cases is just using basic message. We send that back to the server, and the server says, okay, great. I've got this action has happened. Here's information that's come in. Does that transition my state machine to another state? If it does, I send new, it goes through the whole thing again. I parse the new state, and I send the display information to be rendered in the mobile wallet. So think of it like it's like a website. So all of a sudden your mobile wallet becomes the equivalent of a browser, but without all the complexities that you need to have for web applications. So the web needs to display pictures of kittens, as well as doing your taxes, as well as playing videos of sporting events. But we're not expecting the wallet to do that. What we want to do here is we want to do issuing and verification type workflows. So we can make it really simple what we're sending across. And so to me, when I first saw Action Menu, it's like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I started working with it. It's like, yeah, it's not quite what I want to do. So in the spirit of this, I've created this new concept. And then a whole bunch of things have come out of it. One is it's kind of like creating a whole other World Wide Web, in that you have all of these workflows, and workflows can connect to other workflows, and your workflow can connect you to another organization, which has its workflows. And so there'll be this giant web of these things. And matter of fact, I have a bit of a diagram here. So with DigiCred, we've created mock-ups of these for a whole bunch of different organizations. And in the demo, what we're going to show today is going through several of these. So we have a healthcare company called Novant. We have a 2-year college in Wilmington, North Carolina. Oh, sorry, the college is right here. We have the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. We have Cape Fear Community College in Wilmington. We have Project Kitty Hawk, which is a way of doing online education in North Carolina. And we have, this is Apply Wilmington. So Apply, because I'm saying this is like a web, you need a discovery service. And the discovery service is interesting because this is a business model that you can put on top of verifiable credentials. So once you have these workflows, you can have the workflows connect up to this, and this can connect people to other places. So what DigiCred is looking to do with this is to put together a brokering service between students who have their transcript information and all the course information from the schools, and employers who have job postings, and to be able to use some AI to do matching between the two. And if the student doesn't get the job, to be able to tell them that they're not qualified for it, and why they're not qualified, and how they can go back and take other courses to get qualified, or what sort of job or life experience they would need to get there. And employers, when they go to create their job postings, they can see, hey, here's the types of abilities that people have that are registered on here. So this is and this could be for, you could use this for car insurance. You could use it for, let's say you're doing home renovations and you need to find architects, interior designers, you need to find contractors, building supply places. So there's so many different marketplaces that could be created on top of this. I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg here with the imagination on this. So I think before I get too far into this, let's actually see this running. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then Umut, if you can share your screen.
Sure, Prof.
So we're actually going to go into the demo that I just showed there. So we're using, so on the left-hand side, we're using Traction. So we've modified Traction a bit. And in this case, we have an onboarding piece. And this is representing Cape Fear Community College. Over on the right-hand side, we have a modified version of the bifold wallet. What we've actually done is, in Cape Fear Community College, they're actually running the system. So this is just a demo attached to their a test backend that they have. But they actually are running they have this up and running, and they have student IDs issued out to hundreds of students. And what we did for them was we created a tablet with a really nice interface. It's got like a photo in the background, but it does this here where you enter in a student ID and then it's going to go ahead and create a QR code. So this is part of the identity proofing process that they do. So when the student has paid all of their fees and they can show the evidence of that at the cashier for the college, they get the photo taken in a plastic student ID. But in this case, they use the tablet to do the connection with the student. So let's do the lookup. So we do a lookup just to make sure that they typed the number in correct. In this case, we're going to use a student called Lauren Proctor, and we'll create the QR code. And then let's scan that with the bifold. Okay, and here's where, now this is just something we've put into the controller where once this is created, if there's a certain information that comes across with it, then what we'll do is we'll actually issue a student ID to this person. So let's accept the offer for the student ID. Okay. Now this system here is running off our AWS, but for them we actually created the system up in Kubernetes. So we initially took the Helm chart that was for OpenShift that came with Traction, and then we built our own. And so we've got that running there. But this is actually just running off a really big EC2 instance on AWS. Okay, so let's go into the Cape Fear. And we can see here's the beginning of a workflow. So what we've done is we've said, okay, this is the default state for this state machine workflow. And in this, we're showing the logo, we have a title, we have some text, and we have two buttons that are options here. So the two options are request a transcript, and the other is to connect to apply Wilmington. So these are some basic things that you would do. So the request transcript would be something like in, let's say, the BC demo, you'd have to go to a page and say, request your transcript, and it would send something to you. So in this case, just click the button, request transcript. Okay, and then we provide some messaging here. Say, hey, if you get your transcript, you're available to do these things with it. And let's proceed to requesting the transcript. And this is actually going to the Cape Fear Community College test student information system. It runs on a system called Illusion. It gathers all of the data, and then it generates the transcript. The transcript has come across. Let's view the offer and scroll through. Now, this student only has 3 courses. Let's go ahead and accept this. Okay, and done. And we'll see that we should have, there we go. So we've got the student ID for them, and this is an identity-proofed NIST Identity Assurance Level 3 ID because this was done in person. Someone had to show ID, and the person who identity proofed them has been trained in the whole process. So that's, what we will be doing is adding a photo to this, and there's a whole other piece on that. But this is a perfectly good online digital ID. And we also have the student transcript. So let's go back to that workflow, and let's go back to the home menu. And now let's connect to apply Wilmington. So when we do this, does a connection. So instead of having to go and use the out of band through a QR code or something mailed to you or a link or however it's done, this is a direct way of doing that connection. So the Cape Fear Community College has said, yeah, we know who Apply Wilmington is. We want our students to go here. So let's take a look at educational opportunities. And so DigiCred's taking a regional approach. And so they have, their goal is to get all of the high schools, colleges, and universities in North Carolina signed up to the system. And then for each region to have the different options that are there. So we went from Cape Fear Community College. Let's say we want to go to UNC Wilmington. So let's click on that. Let's apply to go there. Okay, and we want to enroll. Okay, we're a first-year student, but this in specifically we're a transfer student coming from a two-year college, going to a four-year college. Those they have a special program. So let's do transfer students. And in this, they have something called a pathways enrollment. So if you came from a two-year college and you're going to a four-year university, they have something where if you have over a C plus, I think it is, you have an automatic placement. So let's choose pathways enrollment. But to do a pathways enrollment, they have to know that you were a student from a two-year college. And so there is a schema for the North Carolina colleges, and it's requesting a proof of something that matches that schema. So let's do the view request. And we happen to have a transcript from a two-year college. We're going to share that with it and send that to them. Okay, and at this point, it can say, hey, great. Now let's connect what you have entered there with a application form. And this is just sort of a dummied up application form that we've got here. Let's go back to the Apply Wilmington. And let's go back to home. And let's do employment possibilities. And in this case, let's take Novant Health. Okay, and let's apply for Novant Health. And let's do a job application. So Novant Health wants to know, hey, what's your educational background? So they're a huge network of hospitals. And so they're going to want to see, particularly they hire a lot of nurses from Cape Fear Community College and UNC Wilmington. So let's do a view request here. And let's share our transcript with the employer. And this is dummied up. We're not actually doing any checks here, but it'd come back and say, hey, here's jobs that you're qualified for. So let's go back to the contacts. So here's what we've done here is we started at Cape Fear. From Cape Fear, we connected to Apply Wilmington. Apply Wilmington took us to UNCW. We went back to Apply Wilmington and we went to Novant Health. And all of these had the workflows. So so stop sharing, and I'm going to go back to the great. I'm going to go back to the diagram that I was showing. There we go. So basically, I took us through paths here. I went in through here, and then we went to Apply Wilmington, which took us to UNCW. We went back. It took us to Novant Health. And so the student had a journey through here. They received a transcript. They sent proof requests of that. We saw forms. They had options that they could choose from. So what this does is it opens up a whole new possibility. So that there's just a small subset of use cases where issue, hold, verify is all you need to do. This opens up things where there's a bit more of a sophisticated workflow where you need to provide context to it and all that kind of information. So what are our next steps for this? So we built the first version. We're pretty happy. It works pretty fast. It does some things. It's a little clunky because it's just these menus right now. And what we want to do is we want to propose a new standard for this because none of these schools want to get locked into a vendor where only their wallet can be used. And if, let's say, DigiCred goes out of business, then there's no one there to support them going forward with creating new stuff. We want to build a support for this into Bifold so that anybody who's building from Bifold can do this, or they can take a look at the Bifold implementation and use that as a reference for an implementation for themselves. And here's a big piece here, which is to create a visual editor. Right now, we have to go in and we hand-coded all of the JSON that we did for the demo that you just saw there. And it's sure that's fine for us. It's a real pain to have to go in and put the stuff into that specific structure. A visual editor is going to allow the users of the system to be able to edit these themselves. And the visual editor will actually have a preview so they can preview and check out what it looks like as people go through. The other thing is, having gone through this experience, initially in my head, it's like, yeah, the chat bot, it'll look like that, and you'll be able to scroll back and see the all of the activity you did and the context in it. But what it actually does is just it makes a big confusing mess. And people could go back and start clicking on buttons of states that they're not currently in. And then you have to, gently tell them, well, no, you've actually passed through that state. You're in this state now. So what I'm leaning towards more is to have a more of like a mobile experience interface, like an application interface, and then an overlay that you can bring up to show you all of the workflows you have for each channel. So with each connection you have, you may be in the middle of 3 different workflows. So to show you those 3 and allow you to join back into wherever you were, or to go back to the main menu to start a new one. So that's what we're looking at in doing with that. So there's still quite a work to be done with this. But basically what we're doing is we're adding context credentialing and opening up new use cases and business models. So I yapped at you for a while, and now the police are coming to get me. So and now's the time for questions and discussion.
Quick, push your code.
I think they're going for a neighbor. I think it's okay.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I just think it's awesome. Just the capabilities it opens up are fantastic. Go ahead, Sam.
Have you given any thought to bidirectional credential flows? And here's what I mean by that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
to me, it's
you have, or
well, I've given thought to it. I haven't built it yet. So I want to have self-attested credentials. So one of the use cases we have for schools is students don't show up to school one day. And so that's an absence. And the parent has to provide an excuse for that absence. And that should be not just fill in a form, but that needs to be a self-attested credential where this basically the parent signs, like remember you were a kid, you had to have a little piece of paper signed by your parent. So it's a signed thing that can be used later on. And so this could be used in other cases too, like if you're giving consent. So I'm providing consent that my child can participate in a field trip or in certain sports. And then this can be audited later on. So this could be provided as a credential, a proof request can be provided to an auditor for that. So yeah, that's a big part of this.
so that's not what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Well, maybe if we squint a little, maybe it covers both. So Keith Smith, as a community contributor that hasn't been around for a little while, but he did some really cool work documenting an expected flow between 2 parties. And the idea was that if you get pulled over by a cop, and the cop wants to see your driver's license in proof of registration in the credential sense, then before you do that, you actually want to know that the cop is a cop, right?
Okay.
And so his idea was document a flow that is understood by both parties. And they can even communicate about like, yes, it's the flow I recognize. And that sets the stage for saying, okay, first the cop is going to prove that he's a cop, and then you can provide this information. And by sort of scripting the back and forth interaction, then it provides a known expected behavior between the 2 systems, which can facilitate those types of credential interactions in a case where both parties need to sort of know who the other party is. And it may be more complicated than just a once back and forth, but that's what I mean by bidirectional, in the sense that you're both kind of still authenticating each other, which doesn't always apply. I think in your examples, there is not much of a need for that, in the sense that if your university introduces you to another party to say, hey, I'd like you to talk to them over here, and here's why. And then you can like provide some student ID. Like you may not actually need that sort of verification exactly, but that's the thought that I had, is that that work, which is a little bit ended up being a little bit more related to workflows in governance, is I think one of the things that could tie in here, in the sense that we might be able to get a little bit two for the price of one, by having one focus on the actual credential interaction and then the other one focus on the menu piece, the way that you've demonstrated it there. So I think there's some really excellent opportunities to sort of solve several problems at the same time, but do so in a way that allows you to use just one of them, for example, in the I just got pulled over case, rather than there being some sort of action menu type of interaction there. But it was this documented flow in data, which is where this resonated in my brain with what you've shown there.
Yeah, interesting. How I see that problem. Another way of playing that out is by having the trust registry not just on who can issue the credentials, but who can see the attributes. So who should you trust to view the credential? So that would be, let's say if it's the Ministry of Transportation is issuing out driver's licenses, and then they go back and say, okay, well, we think that the passport office should be able to see your full driver's license, the police and emergency services, maybe hospitals, so they could lay out, and everyone else, you're warned, you're saying, okay, well, they're asking for all of that. And we think you should just give them a predicate for you're over this age or you have a valid driver's license, something like that. So that to me, I think would be, part of a solution for something like that. But I'm interested to see the thinking that's been done on this, because maybe we provide the interface for that, as you said.
Yes, so that's one discussion topic. The other thing that I was going to bring up, I think you already kind of brought up, which was you recognize that the chatbot interface of displaying menus may not be ideal with what you're talking about, and so that piqued my interest a little bit. Have you given some consideration to moving beyond the chatbot interface for the menu itself?
Yeah, so I've got a UX designer, and he's been working on different options for this. And one of the things that we're looking at right now is basically like a chat interface is just one control out of a whole variety of these. So for the example we had there, you go to the Apply Wilmington, and you may have 15 different schools that you might want to apply to. So instead of having 15 different buttons, one for each one, maybe you have like a swipe right, swipe left type interface where you can go through each of these, and then if you swipe right, then it'll in the background it'll create the connection for you. The other interesting piece with that is it changes a lot on the navigation of the application. So now the home page for, let's say, a buy full type wallet is no longer just this empty thing where you see some notifications. It becomes your feed. And so you'll see in all of those different, I want to call them channels instead of connections. So in each of the channels, there's activity happening. So what's the most recent activity in each channel? Show that in your feed. And then your feed, you should be able to filter that and sort that. And if you click on it, it then takes you into your collection of workflows or the specific workflow that this is happening in. And when you're in that channel, you can bring up like a little overlay that floats over top that says, yeah, here's the one workflow or here's the 3 workflows you're currently doing in this channel. So we've mocked it up. It looks pretty good to me. We need to build it and try it out. It's one of these things where sure we can do it in advance, but once you actually start playing with it, you realize the shortcomings or the advantages of it.
Totally. And so that's I'd be excited to see that too. The other just open question, and this is not something you need to respond to now, is I'm just curious to see the the sort of proposed changes or additions or differences between what you've got and what we've had existing previously. So that's just from a protocol perspective. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's actually it's been a while since I've looked at the action menu, because that was the starting point, and then we kind of abandoned that and went our own direction once we realized, okay, well, it's not going to fit what we're trying to do. So we went off and built our own, really just for a proof of concept to make sure this works. And now we need to go back and make sure that what we have is robust, that it's going to work across multiple vendors of phones and issuer verifiers, that it's going to handle a lot of different use cases, that there's security to this, that people can't start hijacking workflows and doing things. So there's a lot of thinking that needs to go through to get this to the point where it's ready for an RFC. And then some of that work will happen when we propose the RFC. We'd like a whole bunch of eyeballs on it, because we, as a community, we really get one shot at this. And if we mess it up, then it could really hurt adoption. But if we get it right, this can really promote adoption.
Dave,
Yep.
would you be able to show on the screen what a workflow looks like from a data perspective?
Sure. Naz, would you or Umut have one ready? I'd have to see.
Sure, Prof. I can share the VS Code, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I'll stop sharing.
So I'm assuming the RFC is going to be pretty much a sort of a primitive loop where you say, okay, here's the workflow I'm executing. Here's the options you have right now, and then you get something back, and then the rest of it's data. Is that kind of?
We'll show you how it works. So it's, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of a state machine.
Yeah.
So what we do is we represent in JSON each of the states.
Yep.
And in each of those, we say, hey, here's what gets displayed in this state. And here are the actions that we can handle. And the actions are basically what do the transitions. So we have these, right now we're doing them as files, and then we read them into the database. We want to have the visual editor to be able to do that for us. So that you edit in the visual editor and it saves it right to the database, and you read it from the visual editor to edit it in the database. And what we do is we have a parser, and all we pass into the parser is what's the connection you're in, who is the person, well, the connection tells you who the person is, what's the workflow that you're in for that connection, and what's your current state, and then what action you're passing in. So if that action is pass in a new button, or clicked on a button, then that may just take you to another page, or it may say, okay, well, you have to fill in the form before we transition to another one.
Okay.
Naz, do you have?
Sorry about this.
Sorry.
Awkward question.
We were just working on these the other day, so
yes, Prof, I can share.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm having difficulty. Yeah.
Bring one up.
So I'm gonna share my screen. I was about to type, ask him if you have difficulties, I can share. So guys, to be able to see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for example, the Kfir one Prof showed you is the workflow looks something like this is a bunch of JSON files in an array. So you can see each workflow. So this one workflow will be one JSON structure. So what we need to do, change all the states. You can see this title, the one that request transcript button, you put the button similar like this. This is the first initial state. So this is how it looks like.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And you can see we've got the transitions there. So it's pretty straightforward. We'll be adding other things to this. There should be versioning on this, so that if the version of the parser changes, that it should be able to find the correct one. for the data. We need X and Y coordinates in this for each of these states for displaying it in the visual editor. We want to have a lot more logic built into the transitions. And there's a few other things that we're thinking of putting in here. But
Yeah.
it looks really simple to put in, but once it starts getting large, once you get over like 5 or 6 states, these things become really unwieldy. And
Yeah.
for humans to go and edit, like you make one mistake, your whole workflow doesn't work. So you got to pass it through a JSON parser to make sure that everything is good. And even then, like your JSON may be correct, but if you don't have the structure matching properly, and this is why we really need the visual editor.
Yeah. You've got this balance between how complex you make it and how powerful the user interface winds up being. And you want to balance those. If
Yeah.
if it's too fine a user interface, it means the weight on the developer becomes very high. So you want that balance. Go ahead, Kim.
So is this JSON file parsed on the client side?
No, it's parsed on the server side, and then what we do is we send the display information. So it's hard to read what he has there, but we send the display going from top down. So we basically have, it's a row-based display. So we'll have in this case, it's the image, the title, some text, a button, and a button. And so that's all we send across. We send those across, but if you can look in the detail of a button, in the button, we provide some extra information. We provide an action ID. And so that action ID is when the person presses that button, that's what gets sent back to the parser in the server.
Mm-hmm. So the state machine exists on the server side and not the client side.
Not the client side. Yeah. And that way people can change their state machines and add new ones all the time. So it's a very decentralized system that way. Each organization is in charge of their own workflows. The amount of code for this is really small. So to parse through this structure, because we stick this into a database. So each individual workflow has a unique ID. So you look that up, you get the JSON data, you parse through the array of states, you get the state that matches the current one you're at, you gather up the display information, and then you send that. Now, if there's an action ID that was passed in, you check the transitions to see if you transition to another one, and then you go to get that state's display information. So the amount of code is very small on the parsing and the rendering, because the rendering we're stacking these things on top of each other. So once you get all of that code working, then any workflow you create just works. And so this is why I'm up for giving this to the users to go ahead and create their own workflows, because theoretically it's going to be very hard for them to break it. And easy for them to fix it, and easy for them to test it out ahead of time. And maybe we have permissions of who gets to do this, or maybe multiple signatures for this thing to get released. There's a lot of additions that can happen at that point, but this is a small, light amount of code, and as you saw, it responds very fast.
Dave, the RFC part of this only needs to be what goes between the client and the server and the server and the wallet.
Yeah.
You don't have to define all of this as part of an RFC.
No.
And so in theory, somebody could plug in any workflow engine,
yes.
Kamuda or whatever it's called, that I used back in my past or whatever. And as long as you're producing the information for the wallet to consume and process and send back an action ID, you're good, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you could use
good.
BPMN, you could use YAL, you could use what I'm doing with the data-driven state machines. There's so many ways you can do it. So the actual representation of this is up to each party that they want to do. It would be nice if we came to a standard, because then you could have libraries of these that you can share with amongst groups. Because if you have, let's say, because I originally came to this idea. So Steve, when I met you over in Ireland at the Hyperledger Global Conference, They
Yeah.
had the Hyperledger Global Challenge in 2022. And what I had created was a data-driven state machine that used the same sort of mechanism, and it was for decentralized governance. And so what I was mocking up in there was governance models based off of the types of models that are used right now for not-for-profits, for corporate bylaws, all of that kind of stuff. So if people do these up and provide them in a format that's common, we can have libraries of these things ready to go. And so someone says, great, okay, I'm setting up a let's say I'm setting up the Open Wallet Foundation or Hyperledger Foundation on a system like this. I can put all of my voting mechanisms, I can put all of the where people have proposals and they go into debate, all of that could be captured and recorded through a workflow system like this.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Could, I don't know if this is crazy or not, but back to Sam's question in the wallet to wallet interaction, could the workflow be included in a OCA bundle for a credential?
Oh, I've never thought of that possibility. That has some interesting things. So the actual credential itself would have workflow. So if I'm let's say doing a proof presentation, I could send a workflow over to either another individual or even an organization I'm presenting to explain to them how to use what I'm just providing. That's interesting.
Yeah, or I'm an inspector or the police officer, so they initiate the workflow. And the first thing they do is send proof of who they are.
Yeah, okay.
Just an idea.
So this is why I'm excited to bring this out to the community is getting ideas of things I've never even thought of. So thanks, John.
Stephen,
Yeah.
could you mute me, please?
John or Sam, can you do that? I'm not.
Thank you.
All right, you can stop sharing your
Done.
screen, Yes.
And thanks, John, for your comment.
So there's a lot of possibilities with it. I'm pretty excited about this because I've shown this to actual potential clients in this field, and people understand this. I've never had people understand this technology before, but they see the kinds of processes that they do on a regular basis. Like I have another one where it goes through the student absence process, where the parent sees a list of dates that their child is missing, and they have to go in and provide excuses for each of those. Or for their child, they have to fill in a little form where they're consenting to them participating in certain sports. And so they look at that and they go, oh, okay, yeah, I get this. This makes sense. Whereas before I was showing, issuing credentials and then requesting proofs. And it was a big, confusing mess that people would not understand the value of what was happening. They don't get the cryptography behind it. They don't understand that it's peer-to-peer communication. It's been so difficult to get the message across.
This is awesome and very cool. We are at time, and I need to mention that the next week's meeting also conflicts, like last week's meeting, with the technical advisory call, the TAC over at the OWF. Next week we'll be discussing the SIG, which is the replacement for this particular call. And so we will again be diverting folks there for that call rather than hosting one here this week. And then we anticipate at least one further meeting, depending on of this call, same time, same channel after the week after that, in order to manage the logistics of the call switch, etc. So I need to bring that up at the end. So be aware, we'll have links that we drop in the channel for you so that you can easily make it to the TAC call and offer thoughts or listen into that process over there. Any questions before we're done? Any final words? Awesome. Thank you, Dave and team, and looking forward to lots of further discussions about this. We may need to discuss the venue of those conversations. Some of this is software related, some of it is protocol related. The protocol related conversations may need to end up over at the diffs DIDCOM user group call, but we will sort that out as we go, and we will help the work happen in the right way wherever it needs to happen. So very grateful for your presentation today and the work that backs it. And grateful that you're able to share that with us, and looking forward to working with the community on that.
Yeah, this is going to be lots of fun.
Fantastic stuff. Way to go.
Thanks, y'all. Grateful for you being here, and we will see you next week at the TAC call and online and all the other places we see each other. And I hope your week is a great one.
Bye now.
Take care, all. Bye.
Bye-bye.